Welcome everyone. Today we have a new planning guide for the Falconer for the patch 1.0 for Last Epoch. So as you guys can see behind me, we have a number of different guides from level 1 to level 50 and also some mid-game and also end-game planners for the Falconer. In this video, what I'll do is I'll focus on the leveling guide for the Falconer, then we'll briefly talk about the different varieties of the build you can go into as a Falconer, including the minion build, the Shadow Dagger build, or even a cold casting build with the Falconer. Now briefly going through the highlights for the Falconers. So as the Falconer, we'll be focusing of course on Falconry, and Falconry will be scaling with minion damage, companion, and also dexterity. And right away we can see one of the easiest way of us going deeper with the Falconer is to combine with Ballista and also with dive bombs, with aerial assault to deal more damage with multiple scalings with minion damage and also dexterity. So this is my initial plan to go with the Falconer. But of course, as we're gonna see later, there's also build with the Shadow Dagger, which could be quite interesting as you want to try variety with the Falconer. But for me personally, I think it could be a little easier to level up the Falconer using the minion damage. And this is one of my main reasons for making a Falconer with minion damage focus for the early levels. So briefly going through the early game summary for Falconer. I'll be focusing on minion damage, movement speed, and also haste to gain additional traveling and also story clean speed, getting on resistance and also dexterity for Falconer as we go through the story. For the idols, I'll be looking for any of the physical damage for minions and also any of the player's resistance. And finally, as for the skills, I'm looking for skills that provides me with a little extra mobility and also ways of gaining more haste through our passives. So coming over to the builder's guide over here. Briefly going through with the passives, I did invest about 20 points into the rogue, so we will be gaining a little bit of mobility and also chance of getting haste on hit. And this can allow us to have a potential higher movement speed while enjoying the increase of dexterity and also a bit of increased attack speed. Those are not the biggest deal, but just helps you progress through the game in the early game. As we get through the Falconer, you can see the tree is pretty well perked out. And here you can see we have additional ways of getting more haste and also dealing more damage through having haste. Together with increasing Falcon damage and also ballistic damage, our minions build can be quite powerful quite early into the game. And this will allow us to perk into the later stage of the game, getting more minion damage, and also eventually having more movement speed and also reduce damage while moving. Now in terms of the skill choices, I of course will be going to Falconry. In the early stage of the rogue, you can go in with anything with shift and also ballista or any of the damage dealing skills before you get all your skills into the Falconry. Once you get your skills into Falconry, we can also get aerial assault and also dive bomb. You can see I didn't fully perk out each of the skills because I'm assuming we'll be getting to level 50 or level 55, then planning to adjust for a different build. And during this time, I'll be using shift as one of the transitional skills which provide us with more mobility and also more movement and also potential more healing as we travel through the map and also through the story. Later on, as you're going to see a variety of builds, we'll be taking away shift into transitioning fully into a build, including minions and also shadow daggers. Now briefly going through the gears of choice. Of course guys, you don't have to go with bow and also quiver, but I feel like I'm playing a rogue, I want to go range class. We can always look for minion damage and also any of the minion physical penetration for our build. And while doing so, we'll be getting some elemental resistance. We'll be looking for the minion rings, which are the Tranquil's rings and also the Tranquil's element to increase the damage dealt by our minions. Now majority of the time, you'll be looking for increased minion damage on your gears, plus skill rank will be great, but it's not a necessity. You'll also be getting dexterity wherever you go, because it also will help you to scale with most of your skill damage. The increased movement speed is quite important on the boots. You don't have to get this particular type of boots, but any of the boots that give you the highest movement speed is very preferable. Now finally, should we find any of the minion physical damage, minion damage, or any of the defensive idols like HP, resistance, you can be getting those. I didn't perk all of those out, but you can see the rough idea for the early leveling for the Falconer. Now that we spent most of the time talking about early leveling, let's briefly talk about the mid-game. I have to be honest with you guys, I did not get to try Rogue a lot because I only had a limited time, and as you can see, the Last Epoch servers are down during the recording of this video. So as for the mid-game, I have looked out for several builds and asked a few of my friends who have played Rogue a lot during the time and who have planning to go into Falconers. So there are a number of varieties, including the minion build, Shadow Dagger build, or even potentially a cold Rogue build that is adjusted for patch 1.0, but we don't really have a build at the moment. So what I'm following for the mid to late game build is from Ali and also from Grimoire Gaming, who have shared the build available. I'll have those links available for you guys if you want to see the guide as well. So briefly going through the build over here, firstly with the mid to end game minion build. You can see right away, our friend here has used a lot of legendaries which is crafted from unique items. This is good and bad at the same time, because those legendaries will give you additional stats with additional crafting with tier 7 potential, with legendary potential, right? But it's quite hard for us to find those particular stats in the mid game right away. So do bear in mind, guys, if you plan to go with a minion build for the Falconer, even for the mid game, I think my leveling build can work, transitioning into around level 80 and then find your legendaries and then find your unique items and craft those into legendaries. So if you guys do want to continue with the minion build, I'll have this particular link and also guide from Grimoire Gaming available for you guys to follow this one. Now, on the interesting side, Ali also made a build with the Shadow Daggers with the Falconer. So this is quite an interesting take on the build, and I do think this build could be quite fun to play because my friend who loves Rogue also suggested trying out this build. So in this regards, this build is definitely more durable with high HP compared to the minion build, because for the minions you're building for more minions, right? And you can see the HP difference over here. And again, this particular build is not intensely requiring us to use the unique items. And it could be a little easier to go into those exalted items in the early stage of the mid game as you progress into the end game. Now, because I'm not the expert on the Shadow Daggers, I could go through the skills with you guys, but I'm sure you guys can have a look yourself as well to go through those particular set of skills. And I do think it's quite interesting to have a variety of the build as the Falconer. Now, if you guys remember us talking about the Warlock before, most of the Warlock will combine a build with the Fissure or the Cathartic Fissure, and this will enable the Warlock to be auto-casting, while the Falconers have a variety of build. And this is what I want to stress to you guys. As we progress into the release of the patch, I'll be looking for builds to provide to you guys to try out between level 50 to level 85. And it's quite important for you to try what you like about the build before you committing and also min and max your tier 7 FXs and also craft your legendaries for the end game. So this is the biggest difference for the Falconer and also for the Warlock for me at the moment. And what I'll do now is I'll provide you guys with those 3 links for you to get started with the Falconer through leveling, and also for you to try different build as you progress through the mid game. Now again guys, I'm not the biggest expert for the Falconer, and I do plan to play the Falconer as my second class. So if you guys have any recommendations, tips, and also guides for the Falconer, feel free to share with us in the comments below, and we'd love to learn with you guys. And if you have a build link available, feel free to share with us as well, so we can be learning from you to craft a stronger Falconer for patch 1.0.